Okay, what's up YouTube? This is J-Man Time, and today I have another video on antique weapons that are still used on the modern battlefield. And in today's video, we're going to be going over two antique gunboats that are still used, at least to an extent, by the Paraguayan Navy. And those gunboats are the Humaitá class gunboats from 1928. The Humaitá class is a class of gunboats that were designed by a Paraguayan engineer by the name of Jose Barzano in 1927. The ships were built in Genoa, Italy, with the information provided by the Paraguayan Navy. The ships were built between the years 1928 and 1931 and were commissioned in April of 1931. The ship's displacement was 856 tons. The ships had a length of 229.7 feet, and the ships had a propulsion system of two Parson geared steam turbines with a kilowatt of 2,800 kilowatts. The ship's speed was 18 knots or 21 miles per hour or 33 kilometers per hour. And the ship had a range of 1,700 nautical miles at 16 knots. The ship's main armament were four 4.7-inch 120mm main guns, three 76mm 3-inch secondary guns, and two 40mm Vickers autocannons or machine cannons. The ship's armor thickness was between 8 and 13 millimeters, but also had 19 millimeters around the conning tower. The ships of the Humaitá class consisted of the ARP Paraguay, also known as C1, and ARP Humaitá, also known as C2. Now, these ships have one of the longest service records of any gunboats or any steel-clad warship in the history of South America. These ships were officially released in standard usage from 1931 until 1992, but after 1992, they continued to be used as secondary vessels, whether it be training ships, command posts, or as storage vessels, for example, and are still in service to this very day, to be exact. Now, the Humaitá class is most well known for their usage during the Gran Chaco War, also known as the Chaco-Boreal War or conflict, which was a conflict between Bolivia and Paraguay over the Gran Chaco region. Now, during the Chaco War, both the Humaitá and Paraguay were largely used to ferry troops back and forth between the Panay River and the other smaller rivers that separated both Paraguay and Brazil. During the war, Humaitá had ferried over 62,546 troops, and the Paraguay had ferried over 51,876 troops to various front lines over the course of 81 trips. They also had several naval skirmishes with the Bolivian Navy, mostly in the form of the Bolivian Naval Air Force. In those cases, they also clashed with some flying boats or flying aircraft, which were mostly used to drop bombs or scrape enemy warships or Paraguayan warships during this conflict. After the Gran Chaco War, they were used in the Paraguayan Civil War of 1947, where they were used to arrest officers loyal to the president of the time, Mr. Higino Marengo. And that was during the Civil War of 1947. After the Civil War of 1947, the Humaitá class were mostly used as coastal defense vessels from the 1950s until the 1980s. In 1989, the government of Paraguay at the time had collapsed. This was a government under the president, Alfredo Stroessner, and Bolivian Vickers Vespers. During the 1989 fall of President Alfredo Stroessner, the Humaitá, along with others gunboats, joined the rebel forces in order to shield government and military facilities loyal to Stroessner. Eventually, that government collapsed. Now, in the year 1992, the gunboat Humaitá herself was finally decommissioned and made into a warship, while her sister ship Paraguay still serves today as both a storage and training vessels. Now, even though Humaitá was decommissioned, she is kind of still used as a command post for smaller Paraguayan naval vessels, mostly small patrol boats and small attack craft. Now, keep in mind, both the Humaitá and Paraguay are some of the oldest warships that were still in use to this very day, even though they're not used as traditional warships nowadays. But what do you think of these vessels? Please tell me in the comment section below. And until next time, this was J-Man Time signing off.